So essentially, if you look at what is our narrative today, as a combination of Topaz and Cobalt, is to build a fluid and timeless enterprise. So what does that mean, right? So most of the clients are now thinking, or most of the enterprises are now thinking that we need to derive value from AI, right? For you to derive value from AI, you need to have the enterprise data ready for AI, which is where the data fabric comes into play. The data is generated from intelligent apps, which is this third layer. And for you to run your intelligent apps, you need to have cloud. So AI, hence, you require a great foundation for cloud. So I think cloud will drive AI and AI will drive cloud consumption.
Hi, wherever you're joining us, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to Tech Conversations, where we bring you insights from tech entrepreneurs, CXOs, and investors. I'm Hari Arakli, and in this episode, Anant Adya, an Executive Vice President and Head of Delivery for Americas at Infosys, talks about the evolution of the IT services company's cloud services offered under the brand Infosys Cobalt. In this conversation, Anant also talks about the shift towards extracting business outcomes by moving various operations to the cloud, how generative AI is influencing the shift to the cloud, and how the combination of cloud computing, edge, IoT, 5G, data, and AI will influence the future of tech services. So, Anand, thank you for doing this. Really looking forward to this conversation. Maybe we can start with a quick background for you. I know you're, I think, into your 16th year at Infosys.
Yes.
And almost twice as long in the tech industry.
Yes.
So let's hear it in your own words. Give us a quick snapshot of your journey and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so my name is Anant and I'm the Executive Vice President and Service Offering Head. So we have a role name called Service Offering Head for different services that we offer in the company. So I'm the Service Offering Head for Cloud, Infrastructure and Cybersecurity. In addition to that, when we launched Cobalt in 2020, I was very excited about this particular theme and the brand that we are doing and launching for our cloud services across the company. So I lead Cobalt for Infosys. And last but not the least, I'm also head of Americas delivery. So all the delivery that we do in Americas is my responsibility. So those are the roles. Been with Infosys for 16 years and in this space for almost 30 years now.
What got you interested in technology to start with?
Oh yeah, in 1995 when I started, it will be 30 years next year. It was all about software and hardware, right? And most of my friends and most of the folks that I know wanted to get into software and software development. But I was more interested in hardware, as we used to call that time. So I said, while you all build software, let me focus on hardware. So we had disk operating system and PCs and all of those that were coming that time. So I got more interested on the hardware side. So I got into infrastructure, as we call it today. But that's how I started. So absolutely, I think, I love technology and even today, pretty much excited about that.
Okay, so we are, of course, today meeting to talk about Cobalt. But before that, I thought it might be interesting, for you to just give us a sense of how cloud computing itself has evolved, especially in recent years.
Right. So I mean, if you look at it pre-COVID and post-COVID, I think there has been a radical change, and you're absolutely right. So pre-COVID, it was all about maturity of customers, who is adopting cloud, who is not adopting cloud, and there used to be a lot of these Gartner, Forrester, IDC reports that will come and say what is the maturity of enterprise in terms of adopting cloud, right? Fast forward now, cloud has become, we call it as the OS of an enterprise. So nobody has to justify or nobody has to be asked, are you using cloud? Everybody is using cloud, right? So I think, cloud is now the operating system of an enterprise. It's like a foundation, right? So the evolution, if I would call it, pre-COVID, it was still little patchy and it was still a little slow in terms of adoption, while a lot of customers were adopting, but it was not really mainstream. What COVID did was to get this speed, elasticity, agility, and scalable compute and scalability that was required, cloud made it happen. So I would say that the evolution of cloud from where it was to today is that it is the default platform and the default technology for all the enterprises.
I mean, on the flip side, just as a comparison, again, a little bit of trivia that folks might find interesting. What's your sort of guesstimate or assessment of how much of all the world's IT today is still on mainframes?
No, I think, see, in fact, we talk about it, and it's a little bit of a funny situation because, or funny incident. When I started my career in 1995, my then boss said that, mainframes are going to die. So you should focus on Unix and novel netware. Those days used to be something called novel netware. I don't know if you even know the technology because you look very young. But SCO, Unix, and novel netware were the two technologies that my boss said you should focus on. And essentially, what we all did, we started shifting towards x86 and these PA RISC and AIX processors and all of that, right? So my view is fast forward 2024, even today, we have a lot of enterprises who use mainframes. I don't think the technology is dead. There are still some folks who say that when it comes to vertical scalability, when it comes to security, when it comes to scalability of compute that it actually can offer, there is nothing to beat mainframe. But having said that, cloud is also making it possible, especially with all the things that are happening in the AI space and the Gen AI space. Cloud is also making it happen. But I would say that there are still, I would not give a percentage in general, but there are industries like life sciences and insurance and some of the banks who use mainframes a lot because of the processing that they require. I would say it is still there. It will continue to be there for some time because if it has been there for 30 years, I don't think it is going to go away in the next 4 years. But I still see a lot of mainframe.
Okay, let's jump to talking about Cobalt.
Yep.
And I think this very month it's officially turned 4 years.
Yes.
So please start with the name. How did you all come up with the name Cobalt?
Yeah, so we actually, when we actually started thinking about creating a cloud brand, and as you know, we were the first ones in the world to create a brand around cloud, and post that everybody else followed, but we were the first ones. And we said, for us, when we talk about technology, it is not just about implementing a technology, but it is about reimagining the way things are being done in a traditional way. So when it comes to reimagination or imagination in general, cobalt blue is one of the colors that was used by most of the famous painters way back then, right? So that's why we thought that, for us, cobalt is all about imagining and reimagining the way things are done. And hence we said, the best name and the best color to suit this is cobalt. So that was one of the reasons why we said. Plus, it's a precious metal or a precious thing that we say. So for us, cloud and cobalt is very precious and it continues to be that. And that was the whole thought process.
Okay, so now please unpack, demystify Infosys Cobalt for a general audience. Give us a layman's sense of what it is, but also a rigorous one.
Sure. So when we launched Cobalt, right, we said Cobalt is a set of services, solutions, and assets that we'll bring to the table to help clients transform and start thinking cloud first, right? So Cobalt is not one platform or one solution or one product, but it's a combination of all of it, right? So a lot of times when you use a term or a brand, it is associated with one specific product, but this is not that. It's a set of services, solutions, and assets that we bring to the table to sort of help clients accelerate that journey in terms of transformation as well as adopting digital and becoming digital in a way. So that's how we launched it. So it had three foundational pillars when we launched Cobalt, right? So one was, of course, how do we basically use all the assets that we have created across the company, codify those assets, and standardize those assets so that we use those when we are executing a project for a customer, right? So that was the first foundational principle of Cobalt, which is the assets. The second piece was how do we create a community of practitioners who will work with customers, who will bring the industry expert and sort of, innovate for our customers, right? So build better products and better solutions using the power of cloud and Cobalt, right? So that was the second thing, which is all about bringing the right people, bringing the experts to sort of, or we call them practitioners, to sort of, create those products and solutions for our clients, right? And the third aspect, which also is becoming very mainstream today, is most of the times security is an afterthought, right? So we said secure by design. Embedding security in the design when you're executing cloud is a third pillar. So the first pillar was assets, the second pillar was the community of practitioners, and the third one was embedding security in the design when we're executing the project. So that's how we launched in 2020. And of course, it has evolved post that. But these three continue to be the foundation of Cobalt.
Today, 4 years down the line, give us a sense of sort of the size and scope of Cobalt. I mean, I recall trying to do some homework on this. I mean, even I think 2 years back, you had tens of thousands of assets and solutions.
Yes.
Where is that at today? And you talk about Infosys typically working with the global 2000 kind of companies.
Yes.
So how many assets today? How many companies are using Cobalt?
So what we have done is we have divided the assets into three broad categories, right? So the first is, we call them engineering assets. So engineering assets are assets that are used to execute a certain part of the technology implementation, as we call, right? Be it migration, be it cloud native development, be it testing that we do when you migrate the workloads and all those kind of things. So these are all the engineering assets predominantly focused on technology. The second aspect is aspect around business assets. A lot of our customers say that, while technology assets are fine, what are you doing specifically for my industry, my business? It could be related to supply chain, it could be related to HR, it could be related to marketing. So what are some of those assets that you bring to the table? By the way, I'm talking about all of this in context of cloud. There are a lot of other assets for supply chain and marketing and all of that, but these are specific to assets that we have developed for cloud, which are called business assets. The third one is what we call as learning assets. So suppose if I'm having a meeting with an insurance company and I want to understand some of the trends that are happening in the world of insurance by leveraging the power of cloud, and I want to learn about that particular industry in the context of cloud, how can I equip myself quickly so that I'm ready for the meeting, right? So these are all the learning assets, plus our own enablement, certification, training. So that's the third piece, which is learning assets. And the fourth one is what we call as knowledge assets. So knowledge assets are assets that we use to quickly create a proposal, build a solution, create a point of view that we can take to the customer, right? So I think these are the four assets. So today we are at around 35,000 assets globally, split across multiple categories of the four that I spoke about. And we continue to build. The only thing that has changed in the way we build assets now is we have a technology governance team, which we set up 3 years back. So that, not anybody and everybody can post or, publish an asset. It goes through a process where, it is reviewed by our technology team. It is reviewed by our security team, our compliance team, looking for IPs and anything which is confidential in place, confidentiality related aspects, and then it gets published. So there is much more rigor in terms of how these assets gets published. That's number one. Number two, we also want to see how the assets are being monetized. We just don't want the asset to be published and not being used and monetized for the customer. So the second aspect is monetization. And the third aspect is how are we developing the asset and enhancing that asset to make it more efficient and more usable in the market, right? So these are three aspects that have come into play.
And over these 4 years, what proportion of the global 2000 is using Cobalt?
So I think today, as I said, right, I think most of the work that we do, whether it is across the service lines, in any part of digital or data or engineering, or has a cloud component. And a lot of customers are expecting us that, it should not be just a people-based execution, but it has to be a combination of people plus services plus products, right? So I think that's essentially what they're expecting. So I would say in almost 80 to 85% of our customer use some of this asset. when we are executing the deal. So I would say 85% is what I would say as a general rule of thumb. The remaining who do not use it is because they already have something in place, or they want it to be more augmented kind of a model rather than an asset-based kind of a model, right? So that's how it works.
Okay, and just to give our audience a sense of how Cobalt operates in the sort of broader IT landscape, the internet, and so on. Can you talk about that a little bit? And I know that you have a lot of partnerships with all the big cloud providers and even like SaaS cloud specialists like Snowflake and whatnot. And then, and I know there's a part of Infosys that works with startups.
Yes.
You have an emerging tech center. So just sort of paint this overall ecosystem landscape for us.
So if you look at the way we go, I mean, if I distill down to go-to-market motions and how we actually take it to the customer, there are three broad buckets, right? So essentially, the way our Cobalt story has evolved over the last 4 years is it has moved from save and optimize to grow and disrupt, right? So this is broadly how it is, right? So when we started Cobalt, it was all about how we can help clients to save and optimize, right? And I'll explain that a little bit in detail, right? And when I say it was all about that, because the market momentum was like that, right? Most of the customers were saying, I want to get out of data centers. I want to get out of technology debt. I want to migrate my workloads to cloud. I want to modernize my workloads. So it was all about how clients can become more efficient through optimization and how they can save cost because of scalability, low capex, moving to opex, those kind of models, right? So that was the whole thought process around save and optimize, and majority of our engagements were in that particular bucket, right? So we were mostly selling to the CIOs, the CTOs, the head of infra, the head of app, and those kind of people, right? So that is how it started. So we called it save and optimize. As we got into COVID and post-COVID, there was a huge momentum around grow and disrupt. So essentially what we are trying to say is the clients came and said that cloud for me is not about cost takeout. Because cloud is not cheap, as we all know, right? I mean, it is not the cheapest technology that is in the market. So while it gives a lot of other benefits, but it is not cheap. So they said, don't just focus on cost. How do we evolve this to sort of make it more impactful to the business? And that's when we came out with this strategy where we said move away from just save and optimize. While we will continue to do save and optimize, but it is more about grow and disrupt, where we also cater to other stakeholders in the enterprise, like the chief operating officer, the chief financial officer, the chief marketing officer, the chief sales officer, and those kind of people. And of course, the chief HR officer and those kind of folks. So grow and disrupt was all about three things. Number one, how can we build better products and solutions for either the enterprise customers or their customers. Number two is how can we help them basically grow into other markets, expand into other markets where they are not present, right? And the third is how can we help them to better the customer experience that they're delivering for their clients, right? And I'll give you an example out of this. So for example, if you look at one of our healthcare clients, Molina, and this is a published case study, by the way, they acquire a lot of states because they are in the payer space in the healthcare side. And when they acquire a new state, it used to take a lot of time for them to onboard a new state onto their platform, right? Because obviously there is a process. You have to provision the infrastructure, you have to provision the apps, and go through the whole motions, right? It used to take a lot of time. And it used to take months for them to onboard a new customer. We created a reference architecture, obviously in collaboration with the customer, where we onboard the customer or the state now in less than 8 weeks, right? So what does this mean? It means three things. Number one, faster revenue recognition, because as you onboard the customer, you can start recognizing the revenue and you can start making money. That's number one. Number two is you are much better in terms of predicting your whole sales process from the time you respond to that particular opportunity and the time you make the revenue, right? So it is better projection and prediction, as you call, from a finance standpoint. And number three, since it is a very standardized reference architecture that we have established, you can actually do more rather than instead of doing it in series, you can do things in parallel, which means if you acquire more states, you can actually onboard much faster. So I think this is the power of cloud, which actually we brought in, and that is one of the reasons why we believe that clients actually moved from save and optimize to grow and disrupt. There is another case study where one of our clients, it's a Japanese beauty products company. Unfortunately, I can't name because of NDA. They wanted to actually expand in United States. They were predominantly in the Asia-Pac region, and they did not want to go through the process of setting up a data center, setting up IT, identifying products, and identifying the vendor. So they said, we want to be 100% cloud native right from day one. Because this is all about expanding into a new market and start making money and grow our revenues from where we are today to at least $1 billion in the next 3 to 5 years. So this is another classic example of growing in a market which actually nobody else sees, right? So I think that is how the evolution of cloud has been in terms of moving from grow and save and optimize to grow and disrupt. So how do we do this, right? So there are three go-to-market motions. Number one continues to be the IT efficiency bucket. This is all about how do we basically make the customer more agile. They can use the power of cloud for technology and stuff like that. So it is all about cost takeout, save and optimize, that kind of a thing. The second is industry clouds, which is all about bringing business agility. So we actually launched industry cloud for airlines. So for example, the baggage tracking system or the baggage tracing system, we do a lot of work in that space, and it is all about better customer experience. We launched a financial services cloud specifically for fintechs to adopt cloud as fast as possible with all the compliance and the security requirements that's actually bundled into that. Then there was a cloud for CPG, consumer product goods companies, right? So we had a CPG cloud. So the industry cloud was all about specific industries and creating that business agility. And the third was all about innovation and co-creation. So essentially, IT efficiency, business agility, and co-creation, which is all about driving innovation. That's how we evolved the whole thing. So this was until I would say 2021, and then we said, it's a slightly long answer, so I hope you're okay. Then we said that it's not just about cloud. People are buying cloud, they are buying edge, IoT, 5G, AI. How will these 6 technologies come together to sort of deliver what the customer wants? And that's when we came out with this new sort of narrative in 2022, where we said we will not worry about technology, but we'll focus on business outcomes. And that was the key turning point for Cobalt when we said that it is not just about implementing a technology or implementing industry cloud or creating something for you, but ultimately measuring the outcome that we are delivering, right? So we continue to say that the 6 technologies will come together to deliver the business outcome, and we'll also sort of sign outcome contracts, which actually will help us to sort of put that skin in the game that is required for us to make it real for the customer. So that has been the evolution of cloud.
I want to ask you about what those 6 technologies are. I mean, just for our audience to get a sense. But before that, any other well-known customer names that you can mention where you have the permission to talk about them?
Oh yeah, I think Daimler was another big one. We did.
What do you do for them?
We actually do 3 or 4 things. So number one is, as you know, Daimler wanted to become an all-electric car company. And ultimately, Daimler split into Mercedes-Benz and Daimler Trucks, but I'll just talk about in general. Since they wanted to become an all-electric car company, they have to also evolve the way things are being done from a technology standpoint, which means that they had to do 3 or 4 things. Number one is get into a hybrid cloud kind of a model. So we actually decided to create a hybrid cloud technology foundation for them with, of course, public cloud, private cloud, and edge cloud, right? So these were 3 components that we created. Number 2 was how do we basically make the factories more efficient in terms of using advanced technologies like Wi-Fi 6 and 5G, which obviously is mainstream. And third one was to create an operating model which was based on free and open source stack as well as the core technology stack, right? Because we wanted to create a more agile kind of an operating model for them. So that's another big case study for us where we actually have created a very robust technology foundation for their transformation into becoming an all-electric car company. So that's Daimler. And of course, we have several more. Kraft Heinz is another one where we actually have done a lot of work on the data side, where we have created efficiencies and we have created data modernization, done data modernization projects with them, along with, of course, Azure and Snowflake. So that's another classic example, and many more.
And how is this shift towards trying to deliver business outcomes to your customers using cloud-based solutions and technologies? How is that changing your contractual models for Infosys, and what do you see in general happening in the industry?
Yeah, so I think this is actually mainstream, right? I think a lot of clients now, when we sign SLAs and SLOs, they are not just about speed to respond, time to resolve, availability of application, availability of infrastructure, but it is moving towards more of business outcomes and business SLAs. For example, am I able to print my invoices on time? Am I able to print the bills that I'm supposed to send to my consumers on time? Am I able to sort of, recognize the revenue? And if a truck driver waiting at a CPG warehouse is able to drive the truck and, deliver the goods on time, right? So for all of this to happen, there is a lot of working backwards that we need to do to make sure, the technology is working and all of those things are happening. So I would say that, the way contractual commitments are working today is it is moving away from technical and technology related commitments to business related commitments. So that's how, again, depends upon industry to industry. A lot of them also measure net promoter score as one of the outcome because they are measured on that. There are certain parameters around finance. There are certain parameters around HR, like how is the process of hiring and hire to retire is working, including onboarding a user on time and onboarding an employee on time. So those are some of the metrics that is happening. I would say that it is becoming more relevant because clients are seeing that we are delivering value than just being a technology partner. So that's essentially how it is happening.
I mean, in the past, you all used to tell us about going from time and material
Yes.
or throwing bodies at a problem to fixed price projects. And in the world of cloud software and SaaS, I mean, they talk about dollar retention, billing per seat or something like that. You're kind of at the intersection of all of these things.
Yes.
I mean, for example, I think ServiceNow is a good collaboration that Infosys has established.
Yes.
Bringing the best of Infosys and the best
Yes.
of ServiceNow to solve problems for customers. They are hardcore SaaS, you're hardcore tech services. So when you look at all these kinds of combination, how does Infosys get paid today for its work?
So I think
In the Cobalt context. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think ServiceNow is a great example, right? Because when we say Cobalt, it is not just about hyperscalers, but it's also about private cloud players as well as SaaS players. I think ServiceNow is a great example, and I'll give a classic example of one of the CPG companies that we are working with, and this meeting was with the chief HR officer of the company, and essentially one of her problem statement was that my employees are not happy. So we said, what is the issue? And she said that my objective is to make sure that I improve my employee experience. And the problem statement was very simple. When employees reach out for information related to their 401k or their pension or their leave or their stock options or their salaries, they have to go to multiple systems to access this information. Sometimes the password gets locked. Sometimes this app is not working, and there's a whole lot of confusion because the app resides on or the data resides on multiple systems. So ServiceNow, as you know, is like extremely good when it comes to creating these workflows which can actually work with multiple systems. So we, along with our ServiceNow team, have developed a very niche and a flagship product, or a flagship asset, I would say, not a product, called ESM Cafe. So this is actually something that sits on top of ServiceNow, and it's like a aggregation layer and a very intuitive user experience layer that we offer to the employees or the users, where that person can go to this particular work, like for example ESM Cafe, and get any information from that one single sort of point of entry, as we call. And all the workflows for either SAP or custom app or Workday or whatever SFDC is all built in by us. So essentially what we have done is, rather than creating a 10-year transformation project, so migrate everything to one ERP or one system, we build those custom workflows. And these are configurable workflows, by the way. This is not a customized product, because we don't customize anything. These are configurable workflows where you can change and you can adapt very quickly, thereby giving a single sort of point of entry for the users. So ultimately, this was all about user experience. This was all about selling to the stakeholder which is outside of IT. Because when you go to a chief HR officer and you start talking about SAP and Workday and all, I mean, they don't care about what technology is being used, but they care about employee experience. So these are the examples, and it was all measured by Net Promoter Score in terms of what their employees feel about technology that is being implemented and being used. And that was the outcome that we were signing up to.
Okay. I'll come back to what you mentioned earlier, which is the 6 technologies.
Yes.
And the reason I'm asking you about those now is I then want to ask you about AI and Cobalt.
Yes.
So what are these 6 technologies that you're orchestrating together?
Yeah, so obviously it is cloud, 5G, edge, IoT, AI, and data. I think it is 5. It's 6 actually, 6 technologies. So I'll give you an example. Right, we have done this in our Richardson hub in Texas. So what we have done is we have implemented a factory 4.0 in our office, in our hub. So essentially, there is a IoT-enabled robot in our facility, which actually can take you through the whole journey of manufacturing. Right. So essentially, there is cloud, because the data that we actually collect from all these IoT devices is actually residing on cloud. There is an aspect of analytics, because we have to analyze the data that resides on cloud. There is an aspect of AI, because AI will actually enable the outcome that is supposed to be delivered. There is obviously 5G that comes into play, because everything is connected today and you need these high-speed connections that is actually enabled. So cloud is very much required, AI is required, data is required, edge is required, IoT is required, and of course the analytics part of it. So I think these are the 6 things that come together to make it happen.
Okay, sorry, I meant to ask you earlier. In the earlier ESM Cafe
Yes.
Example, ESM is Enterprise Service
Enterprise
Management?
Service Management Cafe,
Okay,
yes.
Okay, there's a little bit similar to the
Yes.
ITSM products in.
I think we actually, the reason why we coined this term was, this was way back in 2015 when we were doing a project for one of our clients in the US. And this was McDonald's, by the way, right? And they were our customers long back, and they have a product which ends with cafe. So we said, why don't we create this sort of, build this and then monetize it, right? So it was nothing. This is not an IP, or this is not sort of a trademark or something like that, but we just call it ESM Cafe. So that's how it all started.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, now obviously this conversation will be very incomplete if we don't talk about what AI is doing in the Cobalt context. As I understand it, today much of AI happens on the cloud, although
Yes.
I think that's changing now as semiconductors become more powerful at the edge. Can you give us a sense of what happened when Cobalt met AI? I'll put it that way. Was that, of course, at one level, it's an ongoing incremental
Yes.
change, but were there also some interesting big changes? Maybe you can talk about both.
Oh yeah, so I think in 2023, last year, we launched a brand called Topaz,
Right.
which I'm sure you heard about it. And when Topaz got launched, until that time, as I said, the evolution of Cobalt was the six technologies will come together to deliver business outcomes. So that's when that was a narrative when we launched Topaz. And when Topaz got launched, obviously we all got together and we said that both of them cannot live without each other, right? Cobalt and Topaz. Cobalt needs Topaz and Topaz needs Cobalt, and I'll tell you why I'm saying what I'm saying, right? So essentially, when we started our narrative in 2018, we said customers should start thinking digital. So, how do you increase the digital density, as we call it, within your enterprise? What do we mean by digital density? It is about technology and process working together, right? Your data, your assets, your infrastructure, your process, your security, all of them are talking together. All of them are connected with technology, and all of them have increased digital density, right? I mean, nothing is happening manually, right? Your orchestration, your all of that is happening in a very, very automated. I mean, it has to be connected. So that was a foundation, which is what we call as the digital foundation. For you to do digital foundation, you have to think cloud first or cloud right, as we call it at Infosys. This is all about observability, orchestration, portability of applications, portability of data, and using the right cloud technologies to make it happen, right? So essentially, we have always been saying at Infosys and as part of Cobalt that cloud is never going to be 100% public or 100% private. It is going to be from edge to core to public cloud, right? So that's how our narrative has been. So how do you get cloud first and cloud right? Uh, a lot of customers actually that we see have moved mostly into infrastructure as a service when they started adopting cloud. But as they matured their cloud journey, they said that they want to be more PaaS and more SaaS. The percentage of cloud adoption started tilting more towards SaaS, second towards PaaS, and lastly to infrastructure as a service, right? So that is how it happened. So that's the second layer, which is all about creating a good cloud first or a cloud right model. And once you have a right digital foundation with cloud, you start building intelligent applications that sit on top of it, right? Intelligent applications start generating a lot of data. So that's the data layer. And once you have a right cloud foundation, a right intelligent app foundation, and a data foundation, you can then start deriving value, which is through AI or Gen AI, as we call it. So essentially, what we said is Gen AI is going to drive a lot of cloud foundation and a lot of cloud, and that is why cloud and Gen AI are sort of hand in glove with each other. So essentially, if you look at what is our narrative today, uh, as a combination of Topaz and Cobalt, is to build a fluid and timeless enterprise. So what does that mean, right? So most of the clients are now thinking, or most of the enterprises are now thinking that we need to derive value from AI, right? For you to derive value from AI, you need to have the enterprise data ready for AI, which is where the data fabric comes into play. Data fabric, the data is generated from intelligent apps, which is this third layer. And for you to run your intelligent apps, you need to have cloud. So AI, hence, you require a great foundation for cloud. So I think cloud will drive AI, and AI will drive cloud consumption. So that's our narrative for joint Cobalt and Topaz, as we call it.
And if we were to talk about it from sort of the people perspective, I mean, you're one of the best known tech services companies in the world, and it still very much depends on people with great skills. So, in terms of an organizational structure, how does Team Cobalt work with the rest of Infosys? How are you structured?
So what we have done is Cobalt is a COE today, right? I mean, we actually started calling it as a COE, a Center of Excellence. And essentially what we have done is we have done three things. Number one, we first decided that, what is Cobalt next for us, or what is a Cobalt narrative going forward in the world of Gen AI, which is all this fluid and timeless enterprise that I spoke about, right? So that's the first thing that we have done. So we have defined what the Cobalt narrative should look like in the world of Gen AI, right? So that's number one. Number two is to make sure we identify what are our top bets that we want to go to market with, right? Which is, of course, infrastructure and application transformation to cloud, data transformation, platform engineering, going beyond IT workloads into semiconductors and factories and manufacturing and all of that. And last but not the least, how do we basically use the SaaS platforms for business transformation, right? So these are the bets that we're taking in the market. And these bets cannot be done all by ourselves. We need to have robust partnerships with the hyperscalers, with the tech players, with the SaaS providers, and all of that. And last but not the least, to do all of this, we need to have great offerings in the market where we have to partner with startups and upstarts in the Silicon Valley, in India, in Israel, and many other parts of the world. So essentially, the way it works is we have cloud architects or cloud champions who will get engaged, or Cobalt champions as we call them, who will get engaged with any of our customers. And we then create a art of the possible, which is a combination of AI and cloud, and how do we basically build that, increase that digital density, get the enterprise data ready for cloud, and then, of course, derive the value from cloud. So this is a team that brings all our services together and take it to our clients and make it happen for them.
Roughly how many specialists are involved in Cobalt today?
Oh, so across Cobalt COE, we would have over 300 to 400 specialists that cut across all three areas, the IT efficiency area, the business area, the co-creation area. There are also domain consultants who actually bring, like especially in telecom and retail and CPG and life sciences. So we also have to bring in the technology aspect and make it happen for cloud. So I think this is a very, very large team.
I mean, on the one hand, some IT companies are being criticized for the very low pay at the entry level. On the other hand, there is such high degree of sophistication that you're bringing to the market in terms of your tech services. I say that because I'm curious about the kind of roles that are now coming up, multidisciplinary roles, people who need to combine different domain skills at the intersection of Cobalt and Topaz and SaaS. Can you give us a sense of that? What kind of new roles are you seeing, and what are some of the roles that are no longer needed?
So I would say we are doing three things, right? Number one is we want to basically infuse AI into everything that we do, right? And what I mean by that is when we talk about AI and when we talk about using Gen AI capabilities, it is not about a role not required going forward, right? It is all about amplifying the potential of that particular person. So for us, using these technologies is actually helping us to amplify the productivity of a person or a resource in terms of how much more can be done by that person. It is not necessarily taking the work out, or it is not necessarily taking the job out, but is more about how that person can do more, right? So that's number one. So that's has been our philosophy. Obviously, it leads to some cost takeout and some efficiency gains and all of that, and a lot of efficiency gains, but is more about enhancing productivity and amplifying productivity, as we call it. Number two, which is actually a shift that is happening, is the whole delivery model is being reimagined. Gone are those days, when somebody can come and say, I need a 15-year experience Python resource, or 10-year experience Terraform resource, because these technologies are so new that you'll never get an experienced person. So essentially within Infosys, what we have done is we actually recruit from the academic institution. We take them through our finishing schools, our Lex platform, which is actually enabled for training, and then basically give them the tools and technologies so they can do their work much more efficiently and much more better than what it could have happened in the past, right? So that's the second thing in terms of how we have reimagined our service delivery model, which is a combination of people plus tools. So essentially, I would not want to call any ratios, but if in the past ratio used to be 90% people and 10% tools, it is going to shift to 70% tools and 30% people, right? I mean, that's the shift that we are seeing. And that's the shift that is being expected by our enterprise customers, right? So that's the second thing. And the third thing is, when you look at an integrated stack, when you look at more automation, more AI, everybody should know how to code. right? Especially when you're using tools like Puppet and Chef and Ansible and Terraform and all of that. People who are doing administration kind of work are expected to know how to code, right? So I think that's another shift that is happening. So I would say Gen AI is going to create more opportunities with all the things that are happening. It is going to amplify the potential of humans. And I would say that, I don't think there is any, if mainframe can continue to exist after 30 years, I don't think anything is going to go away, to be very honest. That's my view, maybe more optimistic in nature, but that's what I think.
But this 90 and 10 to 30 and 70 is a very stunning shift.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, it's just
Yes.
a little difficult to wrap our heads around it.
Yeah.
What does that mean for a company like Infosys? I mean, at the financial level, one could look at it as fewer people delivering so much more, which also translates to a hugely more profitable company. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. I'm just wondering how you look at it.
So see, the way we are looking at this whole thing, right? I think, and by the way, this 90-10 to 30-70 is very, very relevant from an operations standpoint, right? I mean, when you are running operations for clients, especially application operations, infrastructure operations, and operations at help desk and security operations, those kind of things, tools make a lot of difference. Whether it is about monitoring, event correlation, event aggregation, ability to triage certain things, you actually can do it much more faster, right? So I would say when it comes to operations, doing it more efficiently, doing it with tools will actually better the margins for us. At the same time, we can actually give it back to the clients as well, right? It's actually a double-edged sword, but it actually happens on both sides. So I will quote an example in one of our customers today. Patch management function, which actually very, very critical for any enterprise, was previously being done by around 19 or 20 resources who were doing patch management and applying patches and service packs every day, every 2 weeks, right? That entire function is now being done by 3 resources, right?
Wow.
Just because of all the technology that we have made happen. So while those other people can do many more things in the enterprise, it is actually helping us to run a more efficient sort of function. So those are some of the examples.
In the context of, if I can just take you back to what you talked about as your next big bets, in that context, over the next 12 to 18 months, what are your top priorities?
So I would say 3 priorities, right? One is how do we basically get the enterprise data ready for AI? I think there is a lot of play there, and there is a lot of customers are thinking about that, to be more precise and to be very honest. Number 2 is obviously use of AI and Gen AI use cases, and Gen AI use cases getting into production is going to drive a lot of cloud consumption. So we need to make sure we have that robust technology foundation that is ready for AI. And last but not the least, I think secure and responsible AI. I think that is also going to be very critical. So ancillary services around security and around being responsible as to how we do these things, I think that's the third thing. So I would say getting enterprise data ready for AI, obviously having a robust cloud foundation, and doing it more securely and responsibly. I think these are 3 top priorities.
Is there a good way to sort of get a sense of how Cobalt is growing as a business, or how it's contributing to Infosys' overall revenues? I mean, I know it's very deeply integrated with your services. It may not be easy to sort of break it out, but I'm sure you're trying to measure it internally. If you can give us a sense of, to the extent that you can.
Yeah, so see, we don't report the cloud numbers in the market, right? So, and as you rightly said, today, and when I started talking about Cobalt, it's pretty much the OS of an enterprise. So cloud today is embedded into every service line across the company, right? So if you start measuring cloud numbers, then it will be very confusing to do that. But I would say that after we launched Cobalt in 2020, it has grown like every other company, right? I mean, if the hyperscalers have grown, we have done extremely well. There are a lot of success stories around that. We have done multiple large mega deals. I think I would only leave it at that. Unfortunately, I'm not able to share it.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's just something that was on my mind.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Any last points that you want to leave us with?
I think that's it. I think we are very excited about Cobalt, and especially we have built a great brand for the company. And I think with all the AI, with whatever is happening in Gen AI, I think Cobalt will continue to flourish and succeed.